Back at it again, this time replacing the passenger side fuel sending unit. Alright guys, I'm about to edit this video, but before I do, in this I cover the passenger side removal and installation, which is, it is a little bit different than the driver's side, not by much. In fact, the driver's side is tougher getting the fuel pump assembly in with the hose routing. On this one, you had plenty of room to get your hands and clip everything where they needed to go. On the driver's side, it's difficult, but I have another video overviewing that with very specific important details that you must do, otherwise it won't work right. So please watch that. It's like once you install the fuel pump, the hose routing is very specific and it's pretty tough. You like have to get a hanger and stick it in the tank, and it's, anyway, please watch that video because I did not cover that in this one. Yeah. First off, we're gonna go about pretty much jacking up the car. On the front here, this space right about here is about where you can put the jack and the jack stand. So I'll jack it up right here and put the stand under here, underneath right here, and then I'll jack it up from there and then set the jack stands on either side, and then we'll have access to under the car. Alright, got the car jacked up. Going on this side, there's a bunch of 7mm bolts here, and then a couple just surrounding this area, a couple underneath here, and then this shroud kind of pulls up and out. You also need to take off this shroud, so I'm just going to get some needle nose. You pull these out and then off. Actually, it looks like you got pretty good access to everything inside of here. Alright, so disconnected this plug. It was easier to actually pop this off. Then you pull this gray tab right here up, and then you can press this button to take it off. This little hose right here, you press in right here and then just kind of wiggle it out. This one behind here has these two little notches at the top that you have to pop up and over out the back. This slides like back and forth, so once you pop it out the other side, you can kind of wiggle this and pull off, so you can kind of see how that goes. $13mm. Much easier with a close to empty or empty tank. Yeah, feels like it has about a gallon or two. Not that much. Man, it's gonna be tough getting in up in here. It's the same as the other side. It's got these plastic clips that you gotta bust off. Yeah. So you have to, there's that little metal thing. It's like a retaining clip that you got to push off this way. And then the whole thing comes out, and then you got to hope and pray that you can get the clips out. Which is why I bought
new hoses in case the ones internal to there break. But how I had to get this out on the other side was basically you have to drop this tank. You don't have to like take it out, but you have to drop it low enough and take off the screws just to pull further up on that hose to be able to drop this tank. It's such a pain. If they just had like an opening up at the top to where you can get in here, it would make things a lot easier. So right now, next I'm going to kind of work this around a little bit. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and take off this wheel and the wheel well in here. I wanna make sure that when I'm dropping this tank, there's not a bunch of strain on the hose that connects up here. Also, this stuff doesn't take too much to disconnect anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Always love taking these tires off because they're huge. Look at that. Yeah, like this oil can. Golly. Alright, gonna take the different bolts out around here. They're just 7mm. Don't really need to record this, but also a couple of these were missing, so I ended up I think I actually had to drill and tap this because this one was really stripped. Also, I'm gonna check if this ground is painted over, because like every one before that I've seen on this car is painted over, which is shitty. So I'll update what that looks like here in a minute. I want to see if this ground is painted over. I don't. Yep, sure enough, painted over. Look at that. How in the world does that make a good connection? Basically, you're relying on like this bolt, which is also like not very clean, to touch this, go through the bolt, and then the threads on the bolt to ground it. That's stupid. I don't know why Chevrolet did this on their cars, but every single ground I find is like that. And so I go through and just get some sandpaper and I, lightly rough it up until it's, metal is showing. Alrighty. Now, every time you do this, you're supposed to, especially since it's hard to get this perfect, once you screw this back on, like clean this up a little bit and just do a little bit of black spray paint just in case you over sanded. Otherwise, over time, if you get salt water and rust that forms, it'll eventually eat through the frame. All right, if you were to do this side, which we're kind of acting like we are, we're gonna unscrew that with a flathead, disconnect this pushes up right here, and then you pull it off and then disconnect this. One mistake I made last time I was doing all this is I put the fuel tank back in and I hadn't routed this wire up through here. So it's pretty long, but yeah, when you're getting close, just make sure you wire that through. Just as reference, you pull this gray clip back, then you can press in and remove. Oh, I was able to just now pop that clip off. With my hand, I was just able to pull up that tab right like this, and then probably drop this other tank. I might try dropping it and see how much I can get access to that area if it pulls up the hose. We'll just have to see. Alright, so I just reached up here once I got this other tank down. You can pull this thing off this little hinge right here and kind of pull it out of your way. Reached up here with your hand and disconnected it. So you see now, up there, it's disconnected. It's hard to see, but yeah, cheers. So now this whole thing should just pull off, which is going to be a lot easier said than done. So this is where the fun begins. Basically, I'm just going to try and find any means possible of just getting this metal hose further off. And in the meantime, kind of shimmying this tank in case I need to get it pulled fully off. Alright, I'm having fun. Alright, so it's just, I literally reached up with this hand, wiggled, pulled this way, reached up with this hand, wiggled, pulled this way. Kept doing it, realized it was coming out, this inner nozzle. You can see now it's like on the edge. The plastic little retaining thing is catching on the hoses, which I probably will break, and that's okay because I bought new ones of them. So I'm gonna keep pushing and wiggling and I'm almost there. There we go. Just broke them loose. Hopefully didn't damage the stuff inside on the crossover tube. Stupid crossover tube right there. To pull the tape off. Hopefully I didn't damage this too much. And hopefully I didn't damage these too much. If you crack one of these hoses, you literally, your car won't run right because it loses too much pressure. So that was arguably the easy part. The hard part is like basically doing the reverse, because it's easier to just pull out everything. It's so much harder to connect it and for it to be right. So those are the crossover tubes, which if you don't break you can probably reuse, but I went ahead and bought new just because of experience. I'm gonna put some foil over this just to cover, and then I gotta figure out, I may have to raise the car more to get this tank out. Let's see. I'm gonna stop. Pretty much I'm gonna clean this all up. Yeah, you hit it on each one of these until you break the ring loose. Once you have the ring loose, you can pull all this up. Alright, this thing's pretty dirty, so what I did was, also previously in the video, I took this guy off. Since it just routes up here, you don't really have to do that. So I taped this off and did my best to tape this opening off. These two, and basically I'm just gonna very gently clean this off with soap and water before I go any further, just so when I get into this there's not a bunch of dust and stuff around. So if you tape this stuff and you don't use a bunch of high pressure water and like don't spray directly on these things, it should be fine. Even if a drop or two of water gets in the gas tank, it's not gonna be a big deal. interconnected, as you can see. Always good to check in the fuel tank, make sure there's no crap or debris. I'm gonna remove the old hoses, replace them. This really was a lot easier to get in than the driver's side. It's pretty self-explanatory how the things connect. Making sure the O-rings are in there. First one in. Alright, got them both connected. I want to make sure the movement of that bobber is free. So I'm just gonna kind of watch this as I go down. And then lastly, always make sure you got freedom of movement of that bobber. I'm gonna put down the camera. After this, you're gonna install this again, and then we'll go from there. Hammer this guy back on, just hit it from here a bit, hit it from here a bit, eventually it went out. Inspecting these plugs, make sure nothing is screwed up. I'm gonna wipe down and clean this one more time. Do a very light layer of petroleum grease around this, just so it not only slides in easier, but if there's any nicks, it'll help seal. Also on the tubes coming out of the metal thing, you can either, you know, dab a little bit of grease around inside of here. But again, this is tough to get back together, so it's essential that you use some grease to help everything conform. It looks like there might be some damage on that hose. I think it's fine though. Another thing I'm looking at is like trying to like keep my phone lined up and balanced and see where the level of this is, what angle, because it's going to be crucial that those hoses line up to the ones going in here. What I'll probably do is I'll mark with a white marker where it is so I have a reference. The hose is like way up here, and it's literally fucking impossible. Literally, you have to have the physical strength to get your arms up in here to pull that hose back to where it slides in here, and you can hope that the hoses connect properly. I'm gonna turn off the video. All right, so the spacing right here is very important. The tank is pushed all the way against this plate. It's very difficult to pull that piece, the hose, far enough back to get it inserted. I just barely got it inserted. I don't know if it's lined up. That's my next task, is just wiggling and pushing and wiggling and pushing. But I basically push this torque wrench in. I can see the lines are not lined up, so I'm going to be trying to twist that into place and push it further in. But yeah, basically I propped this in, used my knee to hold this up, reached up with both hands, had enough strength to pull it up and over that hole, and now I just gotta carefully make sure to line everything up.
Not really any point to getting that on video. Make sure you connect the hose that's further back up there, the vent hose, before you try and do all this. Make sure all of the hoses are pulled out and over. This one in particular, and your wiring isn't caught up inside of here. Yeah. Spent almost an hour, hour and a half trying to just do it mostly by hand. And once I got everything lined up, what I found really helped was I like pushed it in as far as I could, and then I basically got one of these tire things and I stuck it up actually through, not here, but here. And then, gotta get the flashlight, until right there. And I basically pushed this way and wiggled up really hard and pushed and wiggled and pushed and wiggled. And then finally the clip, once I got it close enough in place, I'm trying to line it up. Can't really see it. Well, on this side I can kind of show you a little bit. That clip that you twist and slide on and push it in, I got it to finally slide in and catch. And I got the plastic locking tab back into place, so I can't really, it doesn't look like it's picking up on camera. Yeah. Anyway, so that really helped. Just making sure I put everything back. Make sure you get that hose back there connected. Obviously, before you do this. So once you get to this point, don't put everything back together. Once you get that hose connected, you get that clamp installed, come back, plug everything in up here. It's basically that plug. God damn it, this flashlight. This guy right here, this black hose with a clip. You should have everything else plugged in at this point, and this hose. I'm even leaving it hanging, and I probably will just fire it up and then make sure it's running okay and not losing a ton of pressure. But before I patch everything up, I'll probably do this tomorrow morning. I'm gonna put a fuel pressure gauge on there, which won't take long. It'll take like 10 minutes, and just make sure my fuel pressure isn't like super low. Because what can happen is it can start up, and then whenever you're driving under acceleration, if something is loose in there, it'll lose a ton of power. In fact, I think I had that when I first got the car. I ended up replacing the pump. That might have been the only issue. Yeah, be a good thing to plug in the fuel pump. Battery terminal, I'll get that back on, and then start it for a second. Which I don't like doing on the jack stands, but I want to know it runs and that the sensor isn't screwing up. Well, fuel gauge is showing, and usually after I reset the code after like 10 seconds, it fails again. Well, not losing enough pressure to not start, so fuel level sensor is definitely fixed in the first 30 seconds, which is usually so. hate on this car how every single time you have the parking brake, you open the door, the seat starts moving all the way back and forward, then back and forward. It's like, dude, I don't want that. Can you please tell me how to turn it off? Anyway, carbon dioxide poisoning. I'm gonna check fuel pressure tomorrow. I gave it a few revs, which I normally don't do when it's cold, and it seemed a little hesitant, but it could just be because it's cold. Hopefully that's it. I'll finish this video tomorrow. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully this helps. If you can do it, I can do it. Alright guys, I'm about to edit this video, but before I do, in this I cover the passenger side removal and installation, which is, it is a little bit different than the driver's side, not by much. In fact, the driver's side is tougher getting the fuel pump assembly in with the hose routing. On this one, you had plenty of room to get your hands and clip everything where they needed to go. On the driver's side, it's difficult, but I have another video overviewing that with very specific important details that you must do, otherwise it won't work right. So please watch that. It's like once you install the fuel pump, the hose routing is very specific and it's pretty tough. You like have to get a hanger and stick it in the tank, and it's, anyway, please watch that video because I did not cover that in this one. Yeah. Alright, gonna be turning on the car again, checking fuel pressure. One thing I was looking at is it seems like there might have been a gasket or O-ring still installed on the old line that's coming out of the hose up there. And I'm hopeful that if everything's connected, if anything, the new stuff would just push that out of the way. But it's still, I'm not quite sure. If it's holding pressure and everything looks good, nothing is leaking, I'm gonna put everything back together, which may be a risk. Take it for a drive, see if everything is holding and feeling right. If it is losing fuel pressure, that's the first thing I'll check. But it's anything that little nozzle is maybe a ½ inch too long, so once the new ones press onto it, it should just press those out of the way. And they look kind of different. I thought there was 2 O-rings that seat back in there, so maybe that little piece I'm looking at is supposed to be there and stay there. But we'll see. I'm about to check fuel pressure. One of those hoses is leaking. This will drop very rapidly, and it's not. It's very, very, very slowly dropping.